If you ask a Trump supporter right now who the biggest two disappointments in the administration are, I think the two names you're going to get are Dan Bongino and Kash Patel. And at the end of the year, we saw the leaving of one of those names with Dan Bongino jumping ship. Now, of course, this came with the announcement that he was returning to his regularly scheduled performance on the airwaves. And this certainly took a lot of people off guard, myself included. Him and Dave Smith got in this big spat online, and that started getting a bunch of attention. And basically, he's been crashing out on everybody he can on Twitter, blocking everyone to the point where that has become a meme. And it's almost Streisand effect at this point, where pretty much this guy can't put anything up on the internet without being bombarded. And I want to talk about that because I think it's completely justified and everybody should continue to do it in every way except make it even harsher. Why? Because Dan Bongino is not just a failure in this situation. He appears to be somebody who is running cover and protected the individuals and people who, for instance, are in the Epstein files and involved in the Epstein scandal, the trafficking of young women, and the moving of money, which appears to be being done for intelligence organizations that Epstein had clear connections with, including, for instance, the FBI, possibly, that Dan Bongino was the deputy director of. So now he's jumping ship, going back to the internet, and everybody keeps asking the question of, well, what are you going to talk about? When are you going to address the fact that you covered up for this? When are you going to address the fact that you did nothing in the position that you went for? Let's not forget how adamant Dan Bongino was before he got into the position, what he said he was going to do.
Listen, that Jeffrey Epstein story is a big deal. Please do not let that story go. Keep your eye on this. Catherine Rumler, we need to keep the heat on this case, folks. There are a lot of people who are knee deep in the Washington swamp who are not telling you the truth about serious allegations out there that Epstein may have had video and audio of people out there doing things they shouldn't have been doing. And you should be asking yourself the question, how is it that all these people, the CIA director, the Obama fixer, Bill Clinton, all intersected paths with Jeffrey Epstein? Jeffrey Epstein isn't with us anymore, and nobody seems to want to talk about it. Outside of a few entrepreneurial media outlets saying, hey, this is a big deal.
He killed himself. You want me to I've seen the whole file. He killed himself.
That brings me to the second name, that Kash Patel guy. He is still there, although I wouldn't be surprised to see how long that lasts. But certainly for Bongo Boy here, Dan Bongino is screwed. The internet never forgets. You got people right now that are being canceled for shit they said randomly 10 years ago that isn't even a real issue. You, on the other hand, actually did something legitimately morally completely askew, something that should get you, frankly, removed from most common societies. You ran cover for what is one of the biggest sex trafficking scandals to hit the United States pretty much ever. I think this blows everything else out of the water. It certainly connects to enough people to suffice for any conspiracy theorist to feed off of for the next 100 years. They're going to be talking about this scandal in books 50, 60, 75, 100 years from now. Trust me, it will be the case. Dan Bongino will not be remembered as the deputy director of the FBI. He will be remembered as one of the many names in a book and on lists in places on the internet and in paper describing how he was one of the people who covered up for Epstein. That will be his legacy. And with the way the Trump White House is shaping up and everybody in that whole administration, it's looking like that whole administration will have that as their overarching legacy. It doesn't look good, ladies and gentlemen. And there's people all over the conservative world who will make excuses for this. There's also people all over the liberal world who are trying to dunk on people like Dan Bongino and others using the Epstein hurdle, while their same party members, and in some cases even those individuals, were completely mum on the Epstein issue while Biden was in office. They weren't demanding the files get released. In fact, they were running cover not from the inside, but certainly from the outside with the media. Certainly. So no one has clean hands here. In fact, pretty much anybody in the Democrat and Republican establishment base within the GOP or DNC are corrupt here with the Epstein stuff. They either all had involvement, or individuals they know had involvement, or groups or organizations or think tanks or financial networks or government agencies that they're involved with were connected to Epstein. It makes them all dirty, and I don't think anybody really understands that. A lot of the people in the Trump wing of things and Trump voters, I don't think understand that, or they want to ignore it because it sort of breaks a fragile barrier they have put up.
Seen the whole file. He killed himself.
If your goal is protecting children and rooting out the people who were collaborators with Epstein, the people that haven't been caught, the people who we all understand are still walking free, who are probably continuing to do many of the same things that Epstein was, not only with children, but financially. If your goal is to get those people out, then all of these people in reality and politics, for the most part, are involved in these situations in some way or another, regardless of party affiliation. Let's not forget Trump jumping down the throat of people like Thomas Massie, when if you actually look at what Thomas Massie has said regarding, for instance, the Epstein files, pretty much all of it is exactly what you would want to be said on your behalf regarding those files. So Dan Bongino's entire crash out on this whole situation regarding all of it is batshit insane, and it's going to be interesting to see play out as he decides to come back to producing shows. It's very interesting seeing the mainstream media finally talk about this and talk about the backlash that people on the internet are giving him, including his own fans. You've got the Washington Post now talking about it. You've got the New York Sun and all these media sites talking about it, and some of them leftist, some of them on the right. Something hilarious I pointed out, sad hilarious, but hilarious nonetheless, is just a month ago Fox News ran the headline, Dan Bongino, DC pipe bomb investigation has just begun. Where'd that go, huh? Dan? No, didn't think so. The truth is Dan likes to portray himself as being this, I guess, tough guy. Now he looks like, well, literally the world's biggest pussy.
It's just so laughable. You're so vulnerable. We watched you lie through your teeth. Look, he said, I've seen the files. He killed himself. I just want you to think about this, okay? Dan Bongino, after talking about this all the time, and you saw him right there in the clip saying, don't let up. Don't let up on the Epstein thing. We got to keep talking about this. None of this makes sense. What you didn't see there is he even went as far as one time on the Tim Pool show, he said, I have it on good authority that Jeffrey Epstein worked for Middle Eastern intelligence. Could be any of those Middle Eastern countries, of course. But so he said all that. Then he goes in there. He says, I've seen the files. He killed himself. That was approximately 2 months before the official position of the administration was that the files don't exist. So he said he's seen the files and he killed himself. And by the way, as you know, because we followed this whole crazy train, right? You know, the end result of it is that the bill passed. The files are to be released. Great. So now we all get to see it, right? I mean, I understand they just missed a deadline, but of course, this administration is that they ran on being the most transparent administration in history, right? So we're going to get all that information. So this will be great. So let's see what Dan Bongino saw. I mean, Dan Bongino, by the way, you're coming back to podcasting now. The files have been declassified. I'm not a lawyer, but pretty sure you can tell us now. It's not classified information anymore. You can tell us exactly what you saw, exactly how you were able to look the American people in the eye and guarantee and promise that he killed himself. And you know that for a fact. I mean, you must have seen some really strong evidence in order to know that for a fact. What we've seen so far is a fake AI image of Epstein attempting to kill himself in some way in his cell, but it was clearly determined that that wasn't a real video. So what is it that you saw, Dan? I mean, look, dude, if you want to come back into this world, in this world here, as you knew before you went into government, in this world, the currency is honesty. The currency is the truth. So tell us, man. You went into government, looked us all in the eye, and made up a big fat fucking lie that you don't know.